concept is silly, ridiculous, it's a waste of time. They didn't want that's why they were so successful. That's why they got away.
Made a living in a very dangerous.
This is more an integrated blue society.
Dianne Andrews in black and white.
Thanks for coming back to Dianne Andrews in Black and White. People who keep up with Dianne Andrews know that attorney Pete Losavio is one of our resident lawyers and CPAs and talks about a lot of legal things. And we're going to start today talking about the Electoral College and how this process works. By the time this show airs, we may have already had we won't have had the inauguration, but we will have the January 6th date where the Electoral College makes their votes to who is president of the United States. So let's talk, Pete, a little bit about how the popular vote is based on to get the Electoral College vote.
Yeah. Well, the Electoral College was designed to prevent the popular vote from electing the president, because the founders of this country believed that they didn't want to have the popular states deciding who would become president. So this way, it doesn't allow the states that have the highest population to determine who becomes president.
Like California.
Yeah, so it kind of tries to balance it out such that the less populated states have some say in who becomes president.
Just like with senators. That's why every of the 50 states get 2 senators no matter what your population is.
Correct.
Yeah.
See, so it's the same theory, you know, so they're trying to balance things out. And so it's worked well for all these years.
Right.
I'm a proponent of letting it stay that way.
Me too, because it works.
It works.
And like 9 Supreme Court justices. Why would we need 20 or 24 the court packing? But I guess that's another subject, because even if they were supposed to be conservative, you never know. I think people thought that Amy Coney Barrett and Kavanaugh and Gorsuch would always vote for what Donald Trump said. But during this election period, as you know, some stuff went up to the Supreme Court, and they still wouldn't even hear it from Trump.
A lot of Supreme Court justices, when they were appointed, were considered to be conservative justices, and they turned out to be
John Roberts.
Earl Warren going back.
Oh, yeah. But these 3, we never knew what they were, and I don't know, you know, and people, I've heard other, like Alan Dershowitz, say they should have at least listened to the case from Trump about the Wisconsin, I guess, or the Pennsylvania
well, you know, there's so much
fraud.
There's so much censorship going on by the media, and so much false information. I don't know if we'll really ever know truthfully what happened.
I saw a lot of stuff, and I don't want to get into a lot of detail, but a USPS contractor, did you see that? On where he showed that he went and picked up signed ballots from New York and took them to Pennsylvania. There's no way people in Pennsylvania, 18-wheeler, had enough votes that should have been in New York State rather than Pennsylvania.
Yeah. Well, you know, also, you know, the
Dominion software seems to hardware,
you know,
major problem.
Major problem, you know, used in Venezuela. It was designed by the software.
Most socialist countries use that.
Yeah, CIA.
We have it here in Louisiana, I found out.
Yeah, we do. We do.
Which really bothers me. They just got it 2 years ago, and Texas turned it down 4 or 5 times with all the problems.
And I think the servers were actually, you know, overseas.
In Germany.
In Germany, yeah. So
and I heard an IT guy on television the other day saying that that it was connected, some of the computers were connected to the internet a short period of time. That's all it takes to transfer millions of bytes of data. I'm an old assembler language programmer from IBM. So it does seem a lot of abnormalities, and I've heard, I mean, it's just so much, it's too much to contend with, but CNN and MSNBC won't show some of the things that really happened, as far as 2,000 signed affidavits from people.
Well, they cut off the President of the United States when he was trying to, you know, say what he thought about things or give his view of things.
And social media blocked the New York Post about Hunter Biden getting money from China and Ukraine, and now they're coming out after the election saying, hey, it's true. He's under investigation, Joe Biden's son, for 2 years for improprieties with taxes and other things.
Well, it's just amazing, you know, in this country it's supposedly free speech, that they cut off the President of the United States.
That's right.
They blocked, you know, things from
New York Post, if it was pro or if it was anti-Biden.
Yeah. to me, let people have their say, and then we can determine whether we believe it or not, or whether it's true or not, and but don't prevent us from at least hearing what other people have to say.
And let us make a decision. That's a communist country that censors what you hear to only hear what the government or powers that be want you to hear, right?
Correct.
We're talking communism.
Correct. Well, it's
Socialism. That's the way. There's no free press in China. Now, Pete, we were talking about taxes now with Biden. What do you think is going to happen? What does his plan say? I know you went out and you read his plan a couple of months back of what he's going to do.
Well, he's basically seeking to have a tax increase. And, of course, whether he can get that legislation through is going to depend on what happens in the Georgia.
Yeah, the Senate. If he owns all three branches of government, we're in trouble.
Yeah, he's going to run through his plan, And
that depends on Georgia if people don't know about the race in Georgia.
Race in Georgia, yeah. And so, he's going to wants to increase income tax on people who earn over $400,000 a year. He wants people that earn over $400,000.
Isn't that okay? Over $400,000, they make a lot of money.
Yeah, over $400,000. He wants them to start paying Social Security tax, so that where it cuts off at about $170 to $400.
Oh, he's going to take it up to $400.
He's going to start it at $400 and go higher.
Oh, wow.
Okay, and then he's going to take and he's going to...
but that's the really rich people.
Yeah, but
But isn't he eliminating Trump's taxes, which means everybody gets a tax increase?
Correct.
Yeah, that's the issue. Everybody will get a tax increase.
That's correct. And then of course, how all this plays out is going to depend on whether he controls, the Senate.
He controls the Senate. We're in deep trouble.
And I think there's a part of the Democratic Party, the progressive socialists, they're going to want to do...
The OCs, the Bernies, the Omars.
That they're going to want to have a more progressive tax structure than what Biden's proposing.
Because in Europe and Switzerland, they pay more taxes, but people always point to them as socialists. I was listening to the economist from Sweden say, we're not socialists. We tax consumption. And he said, really, poor people get taxed more than rich people. He said, we have a democratic financial structure in Sweden. And Norway.
So that's their whole structure. You pay your fines based on your income. You pay your income tax.
So I guess people consider that. Well, it goes back to what this economist was saying: it's consumption. Because you bought this $300,000 car, so you've got big consumption. You're going to pay bigger taxes.
Yeah, if you're speeding it, you're going to pay bigger fine.
But he said they still don't do it as far as society and jobs and stuff.
Well, America is a socialistic country now. We have Social Security.
In many ways.
Medicare,
Medicaid is giving to the poor to help them out. And that's a good thing. We have a lot of socialistic programs.
Yeah, which I think is good. But
Me too.
But this progressive socialism is a little different.
And if you look at most progressive socialistic countries, it's like a you, me. You do as I say, but I don't do those things. Look at Gavin Newsom and Cuomo out, especially Newsom out at the French Laundry eating just the bill for the wine. When he told people don't go out, the bill for the wine was $15,000, and he was with healthcare executives with no mask on. Nancy Pelosi, no mask on in the spa and in the salon. Dianne Feinstein, no mask. Do as I say. It's good for thee, but not for me.
Yeah,
so are they really afraid of COVID? If you look under, and I talk about all this in my book, the philosophy, if they were really afraid of COVID, they would have masks on too, if they really thought masks work, which 88.5% of the CDC says that 88.5% of people wore masks that got COVID. But in my book, I talk about how to wear a mask and what kind of mask to wear. Because Nancy Pelosi with a purple piece of silk that tied around your face is not a mask that's going to stop a microvirus.
No.
So, and that's a lot of it. I think people are wearing wrong masks, and it's pro and cons. Don't do mask work even at the N95 in this level. I just interviewed a doctor who had COVID twice, and she just got the vaccine today, and she had no side effects, which is a wonderful thing.
Yeah. Well, like I said, Diane, there's so much false information
It
today.
is.
You don't really know what to believe. But when it occurred to me that the mask wasn't working was when I went in to order a cup of coffee, and the lady behind the counter was brewing it up, and I could smell the coffee.
Oh, yeah.
And the coffee molecules are bigger than
the virus, right.
virus.
And Fauci, in the beginning, go back to it. My first show, a former state epidemiologist said, I don't believe in masks. She said the bacterial infections they cause in the heat and sweat here. And I have that in my book, Cover Up 2019, Cover Up ID 2019. You've read the book. And you found a lot of good information in there.
Very good information.
It's going to tell you how to prepare your life, what kind of drugs are out there that are over the counter, what you should maybe have your doctor look at. It tells you the falsehoods and the truths. And it also, like masks, people are saying, I'm not telling anybody don't wear a mask. I'm just telling you if you're going to wear it. I'm telling you what the CDC and the FDA and all these other statistics are showing. And 88.5% wore a mask all the time, and they still got COVID. Yeah. And also, only 10,000 people had COVID only as a diagnosis when they died from COVID, 10,000 of this 300,000, because everybody else had 2.5 comorbidities, which means they had cancer, they had obesity, they had hypertension, they had immune deficiencies, they had a stroke. All diabetes, if I didn't say it.
So the numbers are skewed. I
think so, because if you ICD-10 is how you bill, right, for the hospitals and for diagnosis. That's your diagnosis around the world. They use ICD-10s. And if I have COVID, if I die with COVID, they put I died from COVID. They get paid $10,000, I think, more for COVID. If you got on a ventilator, you get $40,000 because there's more care required. I understand that. But if I just had a heart attack, I walk in there and I'm in the hospital 2 days. I may have caught COVID in the hospital 3-4 days, and they give me a COVID test. I had COVID. They're going to put down I died from COVID.
So if you got in a car wreck and they test you in the hospital and they say, oh, he's got COVID, he tests positive for COVID, and you die from the car accident, you died from COVID. That's right. That's what I found on everything I've investigated. And you do get paid more money for dying with COVID. So if you die with COVID, again, and look on the CDC website, last month they printed 10,000 people died from COVID on, because everybody's saying, oh, okay, they said I don't have COVID. Now, that's not saying that the other people, some of them didn't die from COVID that had the 2.5% comorbidities. But how many do we know did and how many didn't? We don't know. We don't know. So, and I put another thing in my book. Okay, today 300,000 people have died from COVID. 40% are in the nursing home. So let's take away 120,000, because that's not the administration's, that's not a national problem, that's state by state run, right? Right. So that leaves about 180,000 people out here of 330 million legal people and probably 360 million people in America. We had 180,000 die from COVID that if you want to put it on Trump, you can put on Trump. That are state controlled, which I still disagree with. And then we talk about the numbers of how many died that were with COVID, maybe not from COVID. How many people really died from this disease? I will tell you, H1N1 under Obama, Biden, we had 60 million people with it, but it wasn't deadly. Or did they count the numbers right? That's what I'll leave in people's minds. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's a hoax. I'm not saying it's not for real, but in my book, I give you a lot of choices of information that you can deduce and see what you think. I don't believe maybe all 300,000 died from COVID in the hospital. Well, they're making you report it, whether they died from COVID or not. But I'm a doctor. The hospital is dying for money right now, because for a lot of times I couldn't do my elective surgeries. Thank you. And hey, do I get this extra $40,000? And he dead anyway, or she, from anybody. And don't get me wrong, if you're 100 years old and there's still sympathy, and at Dianne Andrews in Black and White, we who work on this team feel sorry for everybody who has passed, whether it's from COVID, heart disease, or cancer. But let's also look at the psychological damage. Add the people that are killing themselves, where suicide has doubled in this country and tripled in young people. And people who are killing themselves because I don't have a life anymore. You have to balance safety with reality and with this COVID disease, and learn how to live safely with it. Well, Hopefully the vaccine will eliminate
Yes.
us having to wear them.
Fastest in human history, and it should be called the Trump vaccine. And I agree with it being called that because we called Obamacare, if you like it or don't like it. And there are a lot of good people who do like Obamacare and have benefited from it. We call it Obamacare. We don't call it Affordable Care Act. Why isn't this called the Trump vaccine? He pushed to get this vaccine out in 9 months. Fastest in history.
How long do you think it'll take for this to have herd immunity from
70% is what doctors are saying, and I even mentioned it to the doctor today, but the scientists around the world. And in the book, I mentioned scientists who says we should never lock down again. It's going to, and even the World Health Organization, it's going to drive 100 million people into poverty and starvation.
Well, there's a proposal by one of the people that Biden's relying on it to talk about locking the country down for 4 to 6 weeks.
That's right. And to wear masks forever, even after you're vaccinated. Because until we get herd immunity. Well, last time they told us 4 to 6 weeks, and really, people need to understand, too, we had to lock down in the beginning to probably kind of re-gear, and we didn't know enough. Now, Stanford University professors, John Ioannis was one, and 9 others wrote Trump an email saying we do not need to lock down, just go protect the vulnerable, the sick, in the nursing home and the sick people. That's who they told us. That's in my book also. And I've got quotes from about 9 different immunologists, virologists, the best in the world that are disagreeing with lockdowns. But Fauci and Burke, and maybe in the beginning it was good, then the states decided whether they want to lock down. Because I don't think the president can constitutionally tell you to wear a mask as a nation or lock down as a nation. The states decided.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what's happened about the lockdown and the mask and the closings has been due to governors or local officials like mayors and things like that. The president really hasn't set those policies.
And I don't think he can, because Biden first said he was going to do it, a national mask mandate. Then he came back one day and said, I don't think I can do it. And now he's saying, could you please wear a mask for the next 100 days? It's by our mayor here and by our governor, I think, by city.
Yeah.
Again, 7 states didn't lock down. Yeah. Arkansas, South Dakota, Nebraska, 7 that didn't lock down. And they weren't, and their cases are no worse than any place else. What I have in the book, and based on science, based on real science, is that this virus has a life of its own. It has a life cycle of its own. A lot of people, once they started the lockdowns, the price you pay for lockdowns doesn't impede the way the virus is going to react. Yeah. And it's going to come back. We locked down, it came back. We locked down, it came back. We can lock down for 6 weeks, it'll come back at 8. So it's not making logical scientific sense.
Yeah. Well, I think economically we can't stand it.
No, we can't. And is this to drive us into socialism? Is a question that's behind. Have you heard of the book by Chelsea Chemsley from, she's a Washington Post online editor? She said, Socialists Don't Sleep. And that's the name of the book. She works for the Washington Times or Washington Post. I said, I want to get that book. And if you ever heard of Saul Alinsky, the communist who Hillary Clinton kind of worked under, and Barack Obama believed in his books, Rules for Radicals. Yeah. He says these things. And I've interviewed Cuban people and Venezuelan, and what they did in those states, they created a divide, black identity, whatever. Yeah. And they had people like Antifa going around burning up, tearing down stuff, and you cause people to hate the government and be mad with you. Yeah. And you get your guy in there.
Yeah. Well, it's like what Julius Caesar said, divide Gaul into 3 parts and you conquered Gaul, so divide and conquer.
Divide and conquer.
And so that's all they're doing. They're just dividing us so they can conquer us.
It's very scary. Chavez, the one who started the movement in Venezuela. Venezuela is the 5th richest country in the world and still has the most oil reserves in the world, right? And in 2 years, he was a billionaire. He was a pauper. So is it again back to do as I say, not as I do, all for thee, but not for me? But I'm going to be a billionaire. A lot of people may not know, but Newsom is Nancy Pelosi's nephew, of the governor of California. And look at California. Has it been good? It's a mess over in California.
People are leaving there.
In droves, but they're coming here in Texas, the South, messing things up. They're going to Florida and Texas. It's so great there, stay. I go back to black people. When we wanted to change things, what do? We stayed here and we fought. Why don't people stay in California and fight for what they need? Or New York or wherever. You're just leaving it for a mess for somebody else. I don't know, Pete, it's a tough situation, and I may lose a lot of viewers out there, but just look up everything I'm saying. And again, I'm an independent. I'm really a registered Democrat.
Well, I think everybody agrees that economically we can't take another shutdown.
But some people are so scared. I was picking up something from somebody the other day outside, and this woman came up to me, "Where's your mask? Where's your mask? Oh my God, where's your mask?" I said, "I'm outside. I just wrote a book on this. You're 20 times, not 20%," I told her. Less likely to get COVID because of sunshine vitamin D, who has an immune receptor on the immune cells, and because the air, ventilation. She made me put a mask on outside. I mean, they have scared you all. 1.5 million people die a year from cancer and heart disease in this country. Know your facts. Up to 80,000 die from flu, 50,000 from pneumonia a year, and we have vaccines. We're not running from the flu. This virus has less of a death rate in children under 16 than the flu does. I'm bewildered, but my cameraman never wore a mask. Even when I was gloved up, masked up, sterilizing this place, he said, "I'm not wearing a mask." And on the first show, everybody said, "Don't wear a mask," that I did in March. I wasn't afraid. In February, I knew about the virus. I started doing shows in March on it. I never stopped. And if we believe in God, how afraid are we? As long as we do the things that you have to do to protect yourself. Unless you want to become a hermit. I said, get back to life, get back to living, but do it safely and use mitigation.
Well, I don't think we can just stay quarantined in our houses for the rest of our lives.
It looks like that's what they're aiming for with the guy they put in today.
Well, I think what they're going to do is they're going to successfully destroy the economy if they continue.
And you destroy America now. You just saw, what's his name, Sowell from California, the House of Representative guy dating Ying Ying or whatever her name was, and she was a communist spy. And he in bed would have given her all our secrets. And that's just one of many. If we trace everything back that's going on in this country, intellectual property theft, all of that, and the only one that tried to stand up to China was Donald Trump. Because a lot of our Republican and Democratic representatives and Senate are paid. People have sold America out, and it's a very sad thing. I've traveled to 6 continents. You've traveled all over the world. And this is the best country in the world. Don't fool yourself. Don't ever fool yourself. People are not dying to come in here for nothing.
No, I think we live in the greatest country in the
world. We do, and it's about to be destroyed with the Green New Deal. And we have the lowest CO2 emissions in the world right now, are lower than they've ever been. Why are we joining the Paris Accord again and we'll give them all our money?
Well, China keeps building those coal-fired fuel plants.
That's right.
At such a rate.
50 already.
I mean,
they're using coal. They're 1.5 billion people. We're 330 million, and he wants to take away coal and fossil fuels.
We can't affect it.
We don't affect it.
We can't affect it.
No.
Because, we can't bring it down if China continues on their path.
And you brought this up in one of the last meetings, and I brought it up in another show, Pete, about the solar panels. The precious metals have to come from China. Again, we're in bed with China. Yeah. You brought that up a couple months back.
85% of the supply of the world's rare earth elements come from China. And to make the solar panels work or the wind turbines work, you need rare earth elements. So
we're right back.
We're trading our energy independence today to be dependent upon China for our energy. I don't think it's a good trade.
Me either. It doesn't make sense. And they took the textile industry. We gave them that, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, or whatever. Now they're taking the energy industry.
I used to own
I remember that.
Sewing plant in Opelousas.
Yeah.
And the Chinese were selling the Nomex garments and the Endura garments that we made for the plants here. Mm-hmm. They were selling it for less than our cost of material. And there was only one place in the world you could buy the materials from a plant up in Chicago. Mm-hmm. This one particular fabric. So I flew up to Chicago to talk to the guy who owned the factory up there. And he said, look, he says, I guarantee you we are not selling to anybody the material less than what we're selling it to you for. And I said, well, how can they be producing garments that are cheaper than our cost of the material that you're supplying us? And he said, well, it's either got to be fake or they're just dumping it here.
Mm-hmm. They were dumping
they're counterfeit, Mm-hmm. And so, they put us out of business.
And they're going to do that to everybody in America.
Yeah, so,
and people don't realize they use slave labor over there. They take the Muslims and they make what they call them, the name is Meekers, I think is the name. and children, and people don't care. If we had a better economy, you can pay more for things, and we had a better economy in the last administration.
Yeah. Well, they definitely, I'm personally a victim of,
Yeah.
you know, of them putting
And that was 30 years ago, and it's gotten worse since. It started under Bill Clinton. It looks like I remember they had, when I was younger, and they said that his election had been paid for by China.
Yeah. Well, you know, after that we started manufacturing school uniforms for children.
What happened to that?
NAFTA. They started,
Bill Clinton put you in NAFTA.
and
Trump got away, and he finally eliminated it. They'll probably go back to it now, though.
Yeah,
that was a terrible deal. Even when Bill Clinton did that, and I was working for IBM then, I said, why are we giving our jobs to Mexico? People didn't care. 20% of our children were going to bed hungry when I did a show 4 years ago. And they're still going, it's probably 30% today because the schools are closed down, and the kids have nowhere to eat, a lot of them.
well, a lot of them, the only good meal of the day is what they got at school.
That's right. I think we're going to have to close it up, though. I think we've gone on as much as we can on
I've always enjoyed talking to you.
I always enjoy talking. It's just like Pete and I. This is the way we talk. Me, him, and Marie, his wife, when we have dinner or something. But it's always a stimulating conversation. But anything that we've said here, especially the things I've quoted to you that you didn't know, please Google them. Don't do it for me. Do it for you. Because I just like to give facts. And what I've said is pretty much facts. So all we can do is pray for a better day for America. And let's pray that Joe Biden is the man that a lot of people think he is who voted for him. But if you look at history, it may repeat itself. Thank you much. And we'll see you next week on Dianne Andrews in Black and White. Bye-bye. Thank you for staying with us in Dianne Andrews in Black and White. And hopefully during the COVID crisis, we have brought you some information because, again, I always say I gloved up, masked up, we social distanced the guests, we sterilized the studio, and we never had a problem. And we've never had anyone come down with COVID, the contract traced back to here. And I just thank God for that. But I think this is my mission. This is something I'm supposed to do because you needed to know the facts about COVID. And because of that, I've written a book on COVID-19, Cover Up ID 2019, where you can see COVID come out of that. I've done over 15 shows so far on COVID. I've read over probably 2,000 pages on COVID. I've interviewed 30 people. And I'll tell you, this tells the facts about lockdowns from scientists all over the world. It talks about masks. All my resources are here, from CDC to the FDA to all the sources, all the New York Times articles, all the articles that I wanted to write this because this has been the greatest mobilization of private-public collaboration in American history. And I finished this 6 weeks ago. And when you read this, it will talk about Operation Warp Speed. It talks about the Defense Production Act. No one died in America because of lack of a ventilator. It talks about the temporary beds that Commander Summer Knight out of the Corps of Engineers built. These people's names need to go down in history. Thank God. Bless you. See you next week. Bye-bye from Dianne Andrews.